Welcome to this brand new gathering for futurists, foresight professionals, and researchers presented by Dubai Future Foundation. My name is Felix Zeltner. I'm a journalist and the founder of Remote Daily. My team has the honor to produce this brand new series. My colleague Liz is actually producing, moderating the chat, and was just asking you, who are you and where are you joining us from? I'm live here in New York City, and I see in the chat that we have Pretoria, we have Brussels, we have Bangkok, we have New York City and Lisbon. Wow, this is amazing. And Frankfurt, Brazil. There is so much going on here in the chat already, and I want to thank everyone from Mark to Richard to Vanessa to Rasha to Ida who joined us here, and Ben, and is taking the time here to share. This is really important because we want you to leave your virtual business card in the chat so your peers can connect with you. This is a brand new group of people. Even if some of you may know each other already, we want you to leave this hour with new friends from around the world. The purpose of Dubai Future Horizons is really to provide a space for futurists and foresighters to connect and support each other. And over time, we aim to increase our outreach, and together with Dubai Future Foundation and Dubai Future Forum, create a year-round community that democratizes foresight based in the virtual, and expanding and getting together once a year in person at the world's largest gathering of futurists in Dubai. The Future Forum is only 1 week away right now. So it's kind of amazing because she is working day and night to have the Forum Fairy, as she's also being called, the curator, the programmer, with us in the room here to say hi to all of you. Eman Alkadi, welcome to Horizons. So good to have you in the room with us. Hi.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello from, I guess, all corners of the world. It's, it's incredible that you're all here. It does remind me of the address book of the Future Forum. So thank you all for joining us today and for making some time to learn a little bit more about what we do here at the Dubai Future Foundation, as well as at the Dubai Future Forum. And I told you that in secret, Felix. I didn't think you were going to call me a forum fairy, but thank you for that as well.
It's the best name ever, Eman. And we just saw in the chat the Silicon Valley is even here. Very early good morning to you. And of course, Dubai is in the room. Canada, Calgary is in the room. Fantastic community that you are a part of, Eman. And in exactly 1 week from today, you and your team are gathering over 2,500 futurists and foresighters in Dubai. Among them, more than 150 speakers, producing over 70 sessions together. Eman, why are you doing this? Why are you and your team organizing this world's largest gathering of futurists?
Thank you for that question, Felix. Look, I think it's essentially to send the signal that for us, the future does matter. It matters to everyone. The future is inclusive. The future is diverse. And so we run this forum to kind of bring people together to really think about the future in unity, to think about the future sort of together in one space. We sort of have different themes that we cover at the forum, ranging from, and I'll run you through them all today in case people aren't aware already. So we have 4 different themes at the forum this year. We've got transforming humanity, that sort of looks at, what is the status quo today? How can we get rid, and what are some of the processes and structures that we can rethink in order to have a better future for all of us here on planet Earth? We look at transcending collaboration, so sort of looking at that relationship that we have with machines and trying to understand if that fear of machine intelligence is justified. Looking not just at AI, but sort of what comes after AI, all this fuss about AI, but what happens next. We look at regenerating nature, which is a theme that's very close to my heart. And I'm really pleased to see, I think I saw Mark Buckley here with us today, and he's one of our speakers on this track. And so that kind of looks at, how do we reimagine our relationship with Mother Nature? How do we, try to give back more than what we're taking? Because I think fundamentally, if we do want to have a sustainable future here on planet Earth, we really need to think about that dynamic or that relationship a lot more. Fourth, we look at empowering generations. So not just the next generation, sort of the unborn, but really also the reality is a lot of cities are preparing themselves for 70, 80, 90-year-olds. So age is just a number. You're young at heart. And so how do cities prepare themselves for this larger number of 70 to 90-year-olds, and how do we ensure that their voices are also heard? And lastly, but certainly not least, we look at foresight insights. So the foresight insights track is actually for sort of the nerds and the gurus of the foresight world. So people that really want to understand, well, what really is foresight? And one of the sessions that we're running is what makes a futurist. If you go on LinkedIn these days, there's no shortage of sort of self-proclaimed titles. People are innovators and entrepreneurs, and now everyone's a futurist. But what does that even mean? What do we mean by when we say that someone is a futurist? Certainly for Dubai, we've got our own definition of what we like to think is a futurist. And so we like to have these discussions. And this is sort of run over 2 days, lots of panel discussions, but equally workshops, activations, all kinds of engagements in order to really ensure that as many voices are as heard as possible. We do say that the event is by invitation only. We sort of like to think that we handpick our speakers and our moderators, but we also handpick the audience to ensure that speakers will make for the best audience members, and there's good participation. And I know Akash today and Melanie hopefully will agree with me on that point. So I'll leave it at that for now.
And Eman, thank you so much for sharing the main pillars of the event, the size, the scope, and also the fundamental change that you really stand for. And it's so great to share this with so many experts who are joining us from the Foresight community, from Copenhagen, from the south of France, even from flying over the North Sea en route to Cyprus. Okay, Ian, I think that's the most eclectic chat share so far. And Eman, just one more question. When you think about the next 50 minutes that we have together here on Horizons, about the amazing people that we're sharing a room with right now from all around the world, what are you most looking forward to in this session?
So first of all, I hope you all know that you're more than welcome to join us at the Dubai Future Forum next week. If you haven't already been invited or haven't already registered, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have that one-on-one conversation and see if there is any opportunity for you to join us this year. I'm here to just learn from you. I want to learn about what, my boss always tells me, well, I know that the forum is only 1 week away, but the next one's only 12 months away. And so I would love to learn about, well, what should we actually be exploring for the next forum? What are some of the themes and what are some of the topics that we should be looking at? I'm always looking for inspiration, and I'm always open to any sort of conversations around the future and how to ensure that it's as inclusive as it is diverse. One of the things that I'm most proud about this year is the fact that we've managed to secure participants from close to 100 countries at the forum this year. And that's very much telling in terms of how we think about the future as well.
I also know that you financially support many participants, and it's fantastic what you have put together, Eman. We just launched a poll in the chat here. Will you attend Dubai Future Forum 2023? 1/3 says, yes, I'm attending, 15% not attending, and 54% are saying, I'm hoping to attend in the next year or the next years. So you see the excitement that is around your event. And I want to thank you, Eman, for being here. We will see you again for the closing of Horizons. It's really an honor to share the space with you and all of you to be part of Eman's world. As she just said, just go to the link that's in the chat and apply for Future Forum. Liz is going to share it in the chat with you right now. If you are not attending yet and you would like to be there, please reach out to Eman. Please connect with Eman and go to the website. Now, let's welcome our speakers for today, because just as Eman said, what is a futurist? There's a big discussion going on. And also, there's a lot of foresight, different disciplines coming together. It's a very diverse community right now in the room and around the world. So we are trying to give you a little bit of a first glimpse into this amazing group of people by inviting two amazing guests here. First up, the managing director of the Future Today Institute, who is not only managing its founder and CEO, Amy Webb, but also a growing team of futurists that recently expanded from the US into Europe. She's herself a seasoned foresighter, has led foresight teams at large insurance firms, and is now leading the verticals education and Web3 at her company. So glad to have her with us. Welcome, Melanie Subin. Melanie, it's so good to have you in the room with us. Hi.
Thank you, Felix. Great to be here.
How are you, Melanie?
I'm really excited for Dubai coming up in a week. I'm already preparing. I've been on a bunch of calls with Eman and Akash. I just can't wait to see everybody again. Last year was incredible and inspiring, and I know that this year is going to be the same.
You got up early for us. You're on the East Coast, just like myself. What is your expectation for this early morning hour, sharing our morning coffee together?
Yeah, I really hope that the network of the Dubai Future Forum can expand through this medium, continue to connect, meet each other. Dubai Future Forum is kind of a rapid fire 2 days. And so to get to meet people through the chat and get to share each other's contact information and learnings is something that can be difficult to do at scale when you're there in person. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Akash and learning from everybody.
I think you said to me, preparing for today, a community of practice. This is really what you're looking for, and this is really what we're trying to create today. Next up, our second guest is a designer turned futurist who helped many products come to life, from fashion to luxury apparel, before turning his lens towards strategy, and is now leading his own studio, Mivi Studio X, co-creating one of the first communities of futurists based on Web3 called Radar, many members of which are in the room today. Welcome, Akash Das. So good to have you with us. Hi, Akash.
Hi, Felix.
And I think I just remembered.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Very good. Very good.
I think I just remembered that I asked you what is the best way to pronounce your name. What do you feel most comfortable with? And it's Akash, not Akash, right?
Yeah.
I'm still practicing Akash. So where are you zooming in from?
I'm zooming in from Canada.
Amazing.
Eastern time, so not as early as
Okay.
but Melanie is Eastern zone as well. So I think we're both relatively early.
We're in the same, yeah.
And we have Calgary in the room with us. So a lot of many people here got up early for this and are staying up late. So what is your expectations? What are your expectations for this hour, Akash?
I would pretty much echo with what Melanie said. I'm very excited to actually have this session and connect with people. And I'm already seeing so many amazing people in the room. So it's very exciting to actually see the Foresight community coming together here. And yeah, I mean, the 2 days IRL in Dubai is generally really fast, but most of us generally work online. So it gives us a really interesting way to kind of, meet people offline as well. But today's session, I'm very excited because we'll probably talk about some of the, interesting emerging things happening in Foresight, get to connect with so many people who are in the room already. So very excited to actually kickstart something that will become a larger community going forward as planned.
Everybody, while we get into this conversation, we do all of this for you and with you. So please use the chat during this conversation to pitch in your questions, your comments, your recommendations that help us shape the conversation. And Melanie, I'll kick it off with a quick and easy question demanding a short answer. How do you define a futurist?
Yeah, to me, a futurist is somebody who uses data, signals, trends from today, and marries them with uncertainties about tomorrow, things that we can't know yet, to try to figure out what the future might look like. And all of that is for the purpose of reducing uncertainty and helping to make better decisions today.
Did you practice that response? That sounded too perfect.
No, I've said it a lot. You know what? I think not a lot of people outside of our field know what foresight is. And so you kind of have to have a 30-second definition, I think.
Wow. Akash, is there anything you'd like to add to this definition?
I mean, that was perfect, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all about trying to help everyone prepare for uncertainties, help them prepare for what are the many things that might happen. Most importantly, of course, things that we do not consider to be high probability events, but that might turn out to be one. So our job is to kind of constantly help people understand what's at stake, what are the implications around some of the things that we are planning, blind spots, biases. So it's a way to kind of make organizations and individuals be as ready as possible for the many things that might occur in the future, but not about
Interesting.
many people
So
think it is.
while Melanie gave us more a rational description, you gave us some soft skills and also result-driven definition, which brings us to the next point, because we asked a few people in the community, what would you like to know when you meet a new group of foresighters for the first time? And some said, we want to know what challenges they are up against and how they solve them. So I was going to ask you, Melanie, first, can you share a recent challenge that you came up against in your foresight work and how you solved it?
Yeah, we had an organization come to us a little while ago, and they said, we want you to create scenarios for us. We want them to be based 3 years in the future, 5 years at the very, very most. This was a technology company. It was about technology products. But they said, we want to make sure the scenarios us things we've never heard of before. I'm not sure how you do that, right? Because a leading technology company is going to have heard of all the technologies and products that are likely to come to scale in the next 3 years. And so the way that we tackled that is by realizing what they really were looking for was, where should they be going next? What might they be missing in the short term? And the way that we addressed that is by identifying things that maybe they had already crossed off the list, things that they were discounting, things or trends or technologies that they felt weren't relevant to them or their products. And so we helped expand their thinking by introducing some technologies and some shifts that maybe they had heard of before, but they hadn't really explored. And this helped them to rethink some products that they were rolling out, to go in a different direction. And ultimately, it really did, it led them down a road that they weren't expecting to go down in a really positive way. So sometimes foresight isn't about finding that holy grail of something really weird that no one's ever heard of. It's really about understanding the DNA of the organization.
Interesting. And I think it also fits to Annalie's comment here in the chat. My favorite futurists are actually people who study history and psychology. Yeah. Futurists are pastists also. And I think you helped this organization to really look into their past and reframe the question they came to you with. Super interesting. Akash, is there a challenge, a tricky foresight hurdle that you had to get across recently that you can share with us, and maybe you're learning from it and how you overcame it?
Yeah, there are tons of them, so it might be hard to kind of pick one, but one that stands out, and I believe that that's something that I continue to kind of go through, is one of the examples from a global fashion and apparel brand who also are involved in textiles. And they wanted to have their next 5 to 10 years plan charted around a more sustainable direction. And the job was to kind of figure out what are the directions that the brand can take that can provide them the right balance between social, economical, as well as planetary positive impact. So one of the difficulties that I've generally found in these kind of scenario developments or strategy developments for the future is to really get a hang of how consumer behavior is going to develop in the future. And when we specifically talk in the context of fashion and consumption, there's a lot of gray areas. Now, in the current time, we know that more and more people, especially younger generations, are interested in moving towards sustainable lifestyle, but data points out that there is an equal and parallel rise of non-sustainable brands as well. So who's really buying them? And we also know that that's younger generations. So there's definitely a lot of paradox at play here. And one of the things that I worked with this particular brand was to really understand where this paradox is coming from. What are the sources for these paradoxes? Once we started identifying very clearly what might be the sources for these paradoxes, which could be price related, cost related, perception related, brand identity related, we started sort of identifying how we can create a better path forward for this particular brand. So foresight, in other ways, in other words, enabled the brand and me to kind of understand that it's a lot about the present as well. You have to understand the present, as Emilia mentioned in the past, in the chat, that it's also about the past. It's also about the present. So we have to be firmly rooted in the past and the present to be able to understand and decipher the future. A lot of times, clients believe that futurism or foresight is purely about lensing out into the future and then coming back and figuring out what would be the best decisions. But it's actually the other way around. You have to be very rooted in what is happening now. And that's the reason why we do a lot of signal scanning. We try to understand everything the signals has to offer and then figure out a way what could be the future. So that was pretty challenging. But yeah, that's
thank you for pointing us towards the paradoxes in the present, while Melanie pointed out the reframing and the going back into, the roots of the organization and the questions they have asked themselves in the past. Now, Melanie, when we had our preparation call, you said, I love to nerd out. And I said, we are going to call this a category. Let's nerd out together. So how we're going to nerd out is, because even the tiniest differences in using foresight models can lead to huge differences in the outcome. I ask you both, and I ask you to do this briefly because we have 15 minutes, then we want to turn the room to everybody here. One framework that you like to share today that you think is unusual but relevant for folks to know about in this room. And Melanie, I'm going to start with you. I think you are going to share the axis of uncertainty with us, and
that's right.
Liz is going to help us visualize this through the screen share. What's going on here, Melanie? Why did you decide to share this one?
Yeah, you know what, this may not seem unfamiliar to folks who practice foresight regularly, but what is important to me is how we all use it a little bit differently. This is one example from an axis that we leveraged during COVID. A lot of organizations will use this to kind of create 4 different futures or 4 different scenarios. But in doing so, you have to choose just 2 uncertainties that you think are critical. At FTI, we use the axes of uncertainty, but we do it over and over and over again because we need to identify uncertainties across the STREEP model or PESTLE or whatever you want to call it in your organization. So sometimes we'll do, 30, 40 axes to create uncertainties, sort of implications that we can then pull into the scenarios. To us, this is how we get to all those different possibilities of what the future could look like.
Wow. So this was very quick and very precise, as always, Melanie. Thank you for that. And we just shared in the chat, and we're going to share a further link as well, because Medium has changed their membership model, but we share the Medium link of where this model is described in depth, so everybody can look into it. And Akash, I'm now going to ask you to throw yours on the screen for us. Liz is going to share this amazing visualization that you brought to us of the model that you would like to share today. Why did you decide to talk to us about casual layered approach, Akash?
Right. I know that a lot of times this is the part which we sometimes do mistakes. So it's not casual layered, but it's causal layered analysis.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I'm very casual today.
We make a lot of jokes about that when we start. If I start with a client, it's like, okay, we're going to be probably using a causal layered analysis, but it's not a very casual layered analysis, though. We're very serious about it. But a CLA, as in short, we sometimes look at it, is to really kind of use the iceberg model to understand what could be the deeper drivers enabling certain things that we see in the present and which would also cause impact in the future. So it's one of my favorite models, and this was in fact the model that we also used for the earlier example that I provided to uncover the value action gap that we were trying to understand in consumption. And it really kind of dives deep from litany, which essentially means everything that we see in our current realities. We go deeper down to really understand what are the systems and causes causing it. And then when we move down the 3rd and the 4th layer, we're really kind of looking at civilizational worldviews. We're looking at myths and metaphors that frame these ideas. So if people are interested in sustainability, not interested in sustainability, if people are interested in hyperconsumerism, what are some of the deeper subconscious tenets that are mostly civilizational that are actually driving this forward? We identify them. And what CLA does is it reframes those myths and metaphors. It reframes those myths and metaphors to actually a more positive realignment with your reality, and provides organizational strategies that can be used to make those myths and metaphors a reality in their organizations or with their consumers and stakeholders. So it's again, like as Melanie said, I'm sure that this particular framework would be something that many of the folks in the foresight industry use, but this is one that I feel deeply connected with, because it really kind of goes into the systems and patterns that govern our decision making, which we rarely are able to spot and see.
Fantastic, and indeed not casual at all. Thank you, Akash. And Melanie, I guess a good follow-up question to this is, how do you actually make sure that foresight models like this and foresight results in action? How do you do that with your organization?
Yeah. For our organization, there's two different ways. One is a technical way and one is a social way. So the technical way is by using different approaches and frameworks to identify very tactical, strategic actions at the end of any engagement to help the organization know what they should do on Monday morning, is kind of how we say it. And that ensures that the scenarios don't just go sit on the shelf. That can happen if we create really interesting stories that people love reading about, and it really immerses them in the future, and they end there. When they go back to their day jobs, which inevitably many of our leaders do, then the scenarios aren't actionable. So by giving them specific things to go and do, it enables them to immediately begin using the scenarios. But the social aspect of it is walking through the organization. If we can, on the ground, walking the hallways, socializing the concept of foresight with leaders to demystify it. Foresight is something that many leaders are not familiar with. It's not a new practice in business, but it is a new practice in many businesses. And so by creating this awareness and this familiarity with it, by tying it to what every organization is already doing in strategy, it creates a little bit more buy-in and less of an uphill battle for the foresight teams.
So you don't recommend to throw it at people really and come in and say, I know what your future is. You recommend to actually start where the organization already is and implement it with their tools, which sounds so banal, but it's so complex. And I want to thank you both for this talk so far. Before we have two more things before we turn the room over to everyone here. There's so many amazing people here, and I really want to thank you all for taking the time for this inaugural gathering. One is Horizons is also about supporting each other. And I was wondering what kind of foresight, what method of foresight you both would actually like to know more about, because I'm sure there's someone here in the room who will say, I know more about this, reach out to me after the session. So Akash, I'm going to start with you. What is a method of foresight you would like to learn more about that we maybe can help you with today?
So personally, I've been really interested in, and I've been researching with a couple of peers of mine, more academically, of course, the application of chaos theory in the context of strategic foresight and foresight. So chaos theory comes from a mathematical and a physics branch, and it deals with looking at non-deterministic, complex, chaotic patterns, and how do we kind of understand what might eventually happen. So it's something that is purely from a mathematical, probabilistic, and statistical knowledge. But it's very interdisciplinary. It's been used in economics. It's been used to actually predict Wall Street a lot of times, but we haven't necessarily been utilizing a theory like that in modern contexts of foresight. So I've been sort of interested in uncovering how do we use it in an interesting way, because as our world becomes more ridden with crisis, more complex, more chaotic, systems do not necessarily behave in the same way. So how do we kind of leverage physics and mathematical concepts like this? And that's something that I would love to know more about.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's
and I just put it in the chat. Any chaos theorists in the room, please let us know in the chat so Akash can reach out to you and learn more and maybe include you in his collaborative effort to include this into foresight. And I want to say this is fantastic. It also shows how deep foresight goes into various sciences. Melanie, what is a kind of foresight that you would like to be educated on?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell from me leading the education vertical in our practice, one of my personal passion areas is figuring out how we can use foresight to benefit civil society, social frameworks and dynamics. And so one of my key focus areas is how we can use foresight to benefit communities with people of color or communities that need more support in our society. And so any frameworks that people are using to do that work, Afrofuturism is one that comes to mind that I've been becoming more familiar with and studying. But really those frameworks that are catered towards benefiting society, benefiting social dynamics is of particular interest to me and very different than the work that FTI is doing because we are focused on kind of the business strategy lens.
Wow, fantastic. I'm sure there's people in the room who can support you. I just put in the chat. Please make yourselves heard in the chat if you can support Melanie in learning more about Afrofuturism, about the methods, and of course, the insights that come across this discipline and this movement. And there's already reactions in the chat, Melanie, for you. So I hope we can bring you together here. And now to close our conversation, we'll do a quick experiment. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. I absolutely love the idea of just sharing weird signals for a moment and making sure that we get a broad overview from all of you genius minds here about the latest weird signals that you have received. Melanie, while the support is pouring in the chat for you, I'm going to ask you first. Could you share a few weird signals? I know you're well connected in your organization. You have an internal Slack where you share signals with one another. Please share some, maybe 1 to 3 with us that you think could potentially be high impact, but that you also thought were really weird.
So I'll start with the less weird one first. You might have seen news that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, is suing Pepsi over packaging. And I think this could really set a precedent. It depends on how that case turns out. Packaging, plastics, sustainability is obviously something that CPG companies in particular are really focused on right now, but it presents a challenge for certain types of products. Plastic does serve certain use cases, and there are certain applications where something like cardboard or paper is really not a suitable alternative. So I'm really interested to see how that case turns out. I think that we'll start seeing CPG companies probably begin to respond in research or experimentation, looking for other potential alternatives so that they can avoid any litigation as well. My weirder signal that I will share is this sort of experiment on TikTok where there is a Jesus on TikTok that people can talk to or send in comments to. And my interest here is not religious. My interest is this concept of using technology to engage on a spiritual basis. Along with that signal, there was a recent announcement that the Ouija board game is now going to be embedded with AI. This is a really interesting kind of shift where spirituality has always been something that is innately human, really within us, very grounded to perhaps nature or our surroundings. And so seeing technology become a meaningful part of this engagement is something unexpected, maybe not to Tamika, who's a social futurist, but to me at least. So I thought that was really interesting.
Fascinating. Similar to Bible GPT, Sabrina says in the chat. So there's already comparisons being made. Thank you for sharing this. And I'm going to ask all of you right now to chime in. What are your weird signals of the moment that could potentially have a high impact? Please let us know right now in the chat. Share your links and share more of what you have seen recently, while I'm going to turn the mic over to Akash, because I'm dying to know, Akash, what have you learned recently that you thought was weird, but also could have a high impact?
Oh, tons. But I think one that particularly stands out pretty much is one of the signals where where a group of researchers have actually built an automated disinformation model, and they've been able to do that very cheaply for about $800 in a period of 2 months. So it's an AI-driven model, and it essentially produces very quality content, like 20 news articles, 50 daily tweets, which is highly convincing to the reader that 90% of the time, and essentially all of it is fake. Every data point that it produces or every news that it produces is fake. And I think that kind of proves how dangerously easy it is to weaponize AI around disinformation at scale. The researchers say that just about $4,000 per month, you can generate about 200 articles per day to counter 40 plus news outlets with no human interaction whatsoever. So that could be enough to actually interfere on large scale systems like elections, and generally just create confusion and create a mass wide scale of disinformation everywhere. So it's a very it is a high probability and quite a scary signal to actually be aware about, especially as we move into the era of AI. Felix, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. Always looking forward to that phrase. Especially for me as a journalist, it's always great to hear about experiments like these, especially when they are being made and then scientifically researched and shared. So thank you, Akash. And Liz, just put the link in the chat. And if you are like me looking at the chat right now and you're thinking, this is amazing, but I'm totally overwhelmed, I can't follow this. Welcome to the main room for the closing of Horizons. As promised, the link to join our brand new WhatsApp group is in the chat right now. We would love to continue the conversation with you, both for the group that is coming to Dubai next week, also for everybody else around the world, because we would like to share the signals that were being shared. We would like to follow up with you, invite you to future sessions. This is planned to be a year-round gathering with frequent sessions, and the link is in the chat right now. Also to Dubai Future Foundation, very worth following them as well and be part of their global community on LinkedIn. Now, the final words here at Dubai Future Horizons, of course, belong to our guests. I'm calling Akash, Melanie, and Eman back to the stage. Where are you guys? Hi, Akash.
We're here.
Yes, you're still here. Amazing. Melanie, Akash, thank you for making time for this hour together. Akash, your final words for the community. What is something you would like to share before we part ways today?
Well, I'm really looking forward to connecting with everyone, whoever is coming to Dubai or not. It's a great community that we're beginning and building. And I was just about to say in the last breakout room before it ended that futurist community and foresight-led communities are growing, which is a great signal, which is really positive. And I think more and more of us need to connect with more and more of each other so as to formulate a plan ahead for better futures. So it's really great. Really happy to be part of this founding session.
Thank you, Akash. And you're doing your own work in community building. Radar is a DAO that was started on Discord, and many members are here today. So encouraging you all, we will share the link in the chat as well to join Radar, apply for joining Radar. And thank you for doing this groundbreaking work, Akash, with forming communities of foresight in Web3. Melanie, what would you like to share with us before we part ways today? Your final message to this brand new community.
Yeah, I mean, this exceeded my expectations in terms of growing my community already today. I think it's really easy to practice foresight in a vacuum with the small group of people or community we already have. I'd love to challenge all of us, myself included, to reach out to each other more, pressure test ourselves more with each other, because I think everybody in this community has their own subject matter expertise. And I've already learned so much and gotten so many resources from this. So really excited to see where that goes.
Thank you for your kind words, Melanie. And there is more communities to join here in the chat. femfuturists.com. Thank you for sharing, Emma. And of course, the folks at Radar also just shared their link. And thank you, Melanie, for stressing that futurism sometimes is connected in small groups only, and we're trying to be broader here. And thank you again for making the time today. Now, everybody who has their camera on, maybe we can send some virtual glitter to our guests today. Akash Das and Melanie Subin, it's very easy. You just stretch out your hands towards your camera and you make it drizzle. And This is from all of us around the world. This is for you, Akash. And Melanie, thank you also to Eman, who is already running off to the conference that starts next week. I'm Felix. Liz was producing today. Karis was providing mindfulness. And of course, Jaleesa, aka DJ Hourglass, made you all vibe. We are proudly responsible as the Remote Daily team for creating Dubai Future Horizons with Dubai Future Foundation, and look forward to meeting you in Dubai and at the next virtual session.